want to do is I want to put a file which is local or in my Bubble app, and I want to store it on my remote server, and I want to restore it on the remote server in a file called temp test.txt. So I'm using an uploader, but you could just you have a file that is in your database. But at the end of the day, all you need is some base64 encoded text. So how you get the file, is kind of many options. In order to test that my credentials work and everything's just working, I'm just using this method where you pass the username and password, and then we run the workflow, and we'll have some debug information which will tell us what has happened. So we ran the command. We're going to put it in that remote file location, and looks like the put was successful. Okay, so basically it's run and put the file on there, and there's no errors. So, I mean, you could then run a second SSH command to, for example, cat the file, but I know that the file's been put up there because I'm logged into the server here, and that's what the file says. The file says hello from Lindsay. So that's how to put a file onto a remote server. So there's many things that could go wrong on the Linux level. You need to know that your credentials are good. You need to know that the first thing to do would be to test you can SSH to the server with your credentials, and the next thing would then be to check that the user that you're using can write to the file system, that has permissions to write to the file system and to the location you're trying to put the file, and then the workflows put the file. So in this particular case here, I'm using the test method, which is passing username and password. If you read this, it will say I would recommend that you use the private key method. But in order to test things are working, I would do this, and it takes base64 content, and that's how I'm gathering that base64 content for this particular instance. It just makes sense to me to upload a file. I could have that file in the database. I could be generating the content dynamically, but at the end of the day, it just takes base64 content, and that's how it works. So just a quick refresher. Here is where you would put your carefully formatted private key. So you either use a private key or you use a username and password. So you need a username and a private key, or a username and a password. And formatting the private key is a little bit fiddly, but there's instructions on here.